Have you ever loved someone who made you feel deeply wanted one moment, then emotionally distant the next? Have you ever stayed awake at night wondering whether they truly care, or whether you are simply holding on to hope that will never become reality? Few relationship experiences are more confusing than loving a partner who seems to want connection but fears closeness at the same time. It can feel like trying to hold water in your hands. Every time you think you finally understand them, they slip away again. And yet, not every distant partner is uncaring. Not every emotionally guarded person is incapable of love. Some people carry patterns built from fear, past disappointment, emotional neglect, or years of learning that vulnerability is dangerous. They may want love more than anyone realizes, but the moment it gets close enough to touch, something inside them panics. They pull back, not always because they want to lose you, but because they do not know how to stay. This is why so many people walk away too early. They mistake fear for indifference. They mistake silence for lack of feeling. They mistake emotional inconsistency for lack of care. And sometimes they leave just before the walls would have begun to crack. That does not mean everyone should stay. It does not mean pain should be tolerated endlessly. But it does mean there are signs worth understanding before making a final decision. Because if someone is truly trying, even imperfectly, the story may not be over yet. The first truth is that many people give up too soon because they only judge what they can see on the surface. They look at the delayed replies, the moments of withdrawal, the hesitation, the emotional distance, and assume there is nothing deeper underneath. But people who struggle with closeness often do not express care in obvious ways. Their love may come wrapped in awkwardness, fear, mixed signals, and contradictions. To the outside world, it can look like they do not care enough. But inside, they may be feeling more than they know how to handle. They may replay conversations in their mind, worry about disappointing you, feel guilty for their distance, and still not know how to step forward in a healthy way. The tragedy is that many relationships end before this hidden inner world is ever understood. Sometimes the person who looks the coldest is the one fighting the hardest battle within themselves. Sometimes the one who seems detached is actually overwhelmed. Sometimes the one who creates distance is doing it because closeness feels unfamiliar, not because closeness is unwanted. This is why patience must be guided by wisdom. You should never stay where there is cruelty, manipulation, or total refusal to grow. But if someone is struggling while still reaching, stumbling while still caring, withdrawing while still trying to return, then the situation may be more complex than it first appears. The second sign you may need to keep trying is when they still show care, just not in the language you expected. Many people expect love to sound like constant reassurance, romantic speeches, emotional transparency, and immediate availability. But emotionally guarded partners often speak a different language. They may show care through actions, small gestures, quiet consistency, or practical support rather than emotional words. They may check whether you got home safely, but struggle to say they missed you. They may fix a problem for you, but freeze when deeper feelings are discussed. They may notice when your mood changes and quietly try to help, while never directly asking what you need. It can feel frustrating because the affection is there, but it arrives in a form you did not ask for. Yet these hidden expressions matter. People reveal what lives in their heart through what they repeatedly choose to do. If someone keeps showing up in subtle ways, keeps protecting your well-being, keeps noticing details, keeps trying to ease your burdens, there may be real feeling underneath the clumsy delivery. The danger is that many people ignore these signs because they are waiting for a different kind of proof. They want flowers when the person offers loyalty. They want long talks when the person offers presence. They want emotional poetry when the person offers practical devotion. Of course, communication matters, emotional growth matters, but before assuming there is no love, ask yourself whether you are only recognizing one style of love expression. Some hearts care deeply, but were never taught how to say it properly. The third sign is when they pull away, but they always find their way back. This pattern can be exhausting, and it should never be romanticized, but it can reveal something important. If someone repeatedly distances themselves when intimacy rises, then later returns with renewed warmth, they may not be escaping you. They may be escaping the intensity they feel with you. Closeness can trigger fear in people who associate intimacy with loss, pressure, rejection, or pain. When emotions deepen, their nervous system may react as if danger is near. so they create distance to calm themselves. Once the fear settles, the bond pulls them back. This does not excuse hurtful behavior. It does not mean endless disappearing should be tolerated, but it does mean the cycle is often driven by internal conflict rather than lack of care. Part of them wants connection. Another part of them fears what connection demands. If you have ever seen someone withdraw after a beautiful moment, become colder right when things were getting serious, or create space only to return later softer than before, you may have witnessed this exact battle. The question is not whether they return. The question is whether each return carries more maturity, more honesty, more effort, more awareness. If they come back unchanged every time, pain will repeat itself. But if they come back with insight, accountability, and growth, then the return may be meaningful. The fourth sign is when their silence is actually internal conflict. Silence is one of the hardest things to interpret in love, because it leaves room for fear to speak. When someone goes quiet, your mind may tell you they no longer care, they found someone else, they are losing interest, or you meant nothing. But silence is not always empty. Sometimes silence is crowded with emotion. Some people go quiet when overwhelmed. They go quiet when ashamed of disappointing you. They go quiet when they do not know how to explain what they feel. They go quiet when vulnerability feels too dangerous. They go quiet because they need time to sort emotions they were never taught to process in real time. Inside that silence may be anxiety, guilt, longing, confusion, and fear. But because they do not know how to communicate it, all you receive is distance. This is where many relationships break. One person feels abandoned. The other feels pressured and misunderstood. Neither one knows what is happening inside the other. Hurt grows in the space where understanding should have been. Again, silence should not become a permanent lifestyle in a relationship. Communication is necessary. But if someone eventually returns, explains themselves, tries to reconnect, and shows discomfort rather than indifference during the quiet periods, there may be more feeling there than you realized. The fifth sign is when they listen more than they speak around you. Some emotionally guarded people reveal affection, not through dramatic declarations, but through attention. They may seem quiet, but they are absorbing everything. They notice your tone, your habits, your worries, your favorite things, the stories you repeat, the moments you laugh most freely, the days you seem heavy without saying why. Listening is intimacy in another form. It is the act of studying someone because they matter to you. A person who struggles to speak emotionally may still be deeply engaged through observation. They may remember something you mentioned once weeks ago. They may notice your energy changed before anyone else does. They may quietly adapt to make you more comfortable. This kind of attention often goes unnoticed because it is not loud, but it can be one of the clearest signs that you live in their mind and heart more than they know how to admit. When someone truly does not care, they usually become careless. They stop noticing, they stop remembering, they stop paying attention. But when someone listens deeply, tracks details, and stays mentally connected even while emotionally awkward, it often means their feelings are stronger than their words. So if you are loving someone who confuses you, do not only measure them by polished communication or perfect consistency. Look deeper. Are they trying in imperfect ways? Are they caring in quiet ways? Are they returning with growth? Are they listening even when they struggle to speak? Because sometimes the biggest signs are not found in grand gestures. Sometimes they live in the small things people do when love is present, but fear is still learning how to let go. Sometimes the deepest feelings do not arrive through dramatic confessions or perfect relationship behavior. Sometimes they appear in fragments, in moments so subtle that if you are only looking for obvious signs, you will miss them completely. That is why the next truths matter so much, because when someone struggles with closeness, their heart often leaks through the cracks before it ever speaks clearly. The sixth sign you may need to keep trying is when they remember small details you forgot ever mentioning. This may seem minor at first, but emotionally it can mean far more than people realize. Someone who appears distant on the outside may still be paying close attention to everything connected to you. They remember the story about your childhood that you told casually one night. They remember the food you dislike, the song that makes you nostalgic, the date of something important to you, the way your voice changes when stress is building, the dream you once mentioned and assumed they ignored. People invest memory into what matters to them. We naturally hold on to details that carry emotional value. So when a guarded partner remembers things you barely remember saying yourself, it often reveals that you occupy more space in their inner world than they know how to express openly. This can be especially confusing because their memory may feel warmer than their communication. You may think, how can someone who struggles to text back remember the exact thing I said 3 months ago? How can someone who avoids emotional talks know every little preference I have? The answer is that attention and expression are not always the same skill. Some people feel deeply, but express poorly. Some people care strongly, but communicate weakly. Some people listen with their whole heart and still freeze when asked to speak from it. That does not mean you should settle for breadcrumbs forever, but it does mean these small moments deserve to be seen accurately. A person who stores the details of your life is often carrying attachment they cannot yet verbalize. And for many viewers hearing this right now, you know exactly what that feels like. You remember the shock of hearing them bring up something tiny you said long ago. You remember wondering why someone so emotionally closed seemed to know you so well. It is because walls can block expression, but they do not always block feeling. The seventh sign is when they feel safe only with you. This may not look like dramatic vulnerability at first. In fact, it often appears quietly. They relax differently around you than around everyone else. Their guarded posture softens. Their humor comes out. Their silence feels calmer rather than tense. They share pieces of themselves they do not show others. They linger longer than they need to. They seek your company even when they claim they need space from everyone. Safety is sacred to a person who fears closeness. They do not hand it out easily. If someone who keeps most people at arm's length repeatedly chooses your presence as a place of comfort, that is not random, that is meaningful. Many emotionally avoidant people are highly functional in public and highly defended in private. They can seem social, capable, even charming, while internally staying unreachable. But when they begin to feel safe with one person, something changes. Their nervous system starts lowering its guard. Their need to escape decreases. Their true personality emerges in flashes. You may notice they become softer with you than with anyone else. You may see a tenderness no one else talks about because no one else gets access to it. You may witness fears, insecurities, and emotions hidden behind the image they show the world. This is where many people underestimate their importance. They think, if they cared, they would be more obvious. But for someone wired to protect themselves, allowing you to become their safe place can be one of the strongest emotional statements they know how to make. Still, safety should grow into reciprocity. If you become their refuge while your own needs are ignored, imbalance forms. But if safety is leading them toward deeper honesty, more consistency, and increasing trust, then something real is unfolding. The eighth sign is when they panic at the thought of losing you. This can surprise people because it often appears after periods of distance. You may feel forgotten, assume they are unaffected, then the moment they sense you are truly pulling away, everything shifts. Suddenly they reach out more. Suddenly they seem emotional. Suddenly effort appears where passivity once lived. This moment is not always manipulation, though sometimes it can be. Often it is delayed emotional awareness. Some people only feel the weight of attachment when loss becomes real. As long as you remain available, they can keep emotions compartmentalized. But when the bond is threatened, the truth rushes to the surface. They realize your presence was stabilizing them more than they admitted. They realize your consistency became part of their emotional world. They realize they were relying on a connection they never fully appreciated until it trembled. This is why distance can create clarity for guarded people. Space forces them to feel what closeness allowed them to avoid examining. You may have seen it yourself. When you chased, they withdrew. When you stepped back, they leaned in. When you finally became tired, they suddenly became expressive. It feels confusing, even unfair, because you wonder why love only appears when you leave. Sometimes it is because fear numbed awareness until consequences woke it up. But here is the key truth. Panic alone is not enough. Fear of losing you must become genuine change, not temporary intensity. If someone only reacts to keep access, but returns to old patterns immediately after, the cycle remains unhealthy. But if the threat of loss becomes the catalyst for growth, accountability, and emotional effort, then it can mark a turning point. The ninth sign is when they start letting you into their private world. For someone who guards themselves, privacy is often protection. Their routines, thoughts, family dynamics, insecurities, plans, and emotional history may remain tightly sealed. So when they begin inviting you inside that world, even gradually, it matters deeply. They tell you stories they never tell others. They share fears that embarrass them. They introduce you to spaces that feel personal. They let you see them when they are not composed. They reveal struggles behind the mask of independence. They ask your opinion on decisions that affect their future. This is intimacy in motion. Many people think intimacy begins with labels or declarations, but often it begins with access. When someone lets you see the unedited version of them, they are risking something vulnerable. They are allowing witness where they once allowed distance. You may notice this happens in layers. First a small truth, then a hidden insecurity, then a painful memory, then a need they once denied having. They test the waters because trust feels dangerous to them. They reveal slowly because sudden exposure feels unsafe. If you respond with steadiness rather than judgment, more doors may open. But if vulnerability is mocked, rushed, or weaponized, those doors can slam shut again. That is why patience and emotional maturity matter here. Some hearts bloom slowly, not because they are empty, but because they learned blooming was unsafe. The 10th sign is when they struggle to express love, but consistently show it through actions. This may be the most misunderstood sign of all. We live in a world that often glorifies words, promises, labels, and emotional speeches, yet words can be easy. Action costs more. A guarded partner may stumble through emotional conversations, hesitate around labels, or fail to articulate depth in polished language. But watch what they do. Do they make time for you even when busy? Do they help when you are overwhelmed? Do they protect your peace in practical ways? Do they remember what matters to you? Do they show up when life gets hard? Do they try, even awkwardly, to make your burden lighter? Love is not only what is said, love is what is carried. Some people say everything and do nothing. Others say little and quietly move mountains. This does not mean communication should be ignored. Healthy love needs both expression and action. But many viewers have been taught to dismiss devotion if it does not arrive wrapped in romantic language. As a result, they overlook people whose hearts are present even when their words are clumsy. You deserve spoken reassurance and emotional clarity over time. But if someone is actively learning to communicate while already demonstrating care through consistent behavior, that can be worth more than perfect speeches with empty follow-through. And maybe this is where many of you feel torn. You have seen the actions, you have felt the subtle care. You have also felt the frustration of wanting more words, more certainty, more ease. That conflict is real. Loving someone who feels deeply but expresses poorly can be both touching and exhausting. The question is always direction. Are they staying stagnant or are they growing? Are the actions consistent or only convenient? Are they using silence to avoid responsibility or struggling while trying to improve? Because when effort is real, progress may come slowly, but it comes. And as we continue, the next signs may be the most revealing of all. Why mixed signals can come from fear instead of lack of love, the rare emotional moments that expose what they truly feel, and the slow signs that they are genuinely changing because of this connection. Because when someone carries fear inside love, their behavior can look contradictory from the outside. One day they seem close, warm, present, and emotionally available. The next day they seem distant, distracted, uncertain, or unreachable. This inconsistency can deeply wound the person trying to love them. It creates confusion, anxiety, and the painful question so many people ask in silence: if they really care, why does it feel so unstable? The 11th sign you may need to keep trying is understanding that mixed signals can come from fear, not always from lack of love. This truth does not excuse harmful behavior, but it explains a pattern many people misunderstand. When closeness feels good, they move toward you naturally. They laugh more, text more, initiate more, and seem fully invested. But when closeness starts to feel intense, vulnerable, or emotionally exposing, another part of them activates. They begin questioning everything. They need space. They become colder. They seem uncertain about something that felt clear only days before. To the person receiving it, it feels like deception. It feels like games. It feels like being wanted only part-time. But internally, it may feel like two opposite needs fighting for control. One part of them longs for connection, another part fears dependence, rejection, disappointment, or losing themselves inside intimacy. This is why they can look sincere in both phases. They are sincere when they move close because they do want you. They are sincere when they move away because fear also feels real. The tragedy is that both people suffer. You suffer because you cannot rest in consistency. They suffer because they cannot sustain what they truly want. But there is an important distinction here. Mixed signals caused by fear often come with confusion, guilt, and visible internal struggle. Mixed signals caused by disinterest usually come with carelessness, convenience, and emotional indifference. One hurts because someone is conflicted. The other hurts because someone simply does not value the bond enough. Learning that difference can save you from misreading everything. The 12th sign is when they open up during unexpected emotional moments. Many guarded people do not plan vulnerability. They do not sit down one afternoon and decide to share everything clearly. Their emotions tend to surface when defenses are lowered unexpectedly. It may happen late at night when the world is quiet. It may happen after a meaningful conversation. It may happen when they are tired, stressed, missing you, or afraid of losing you. Suddenly, the person who usually says very little begins speaking from somewhere deep inside. They tell you they think about you more than you know. They admit they are scared. They confess they do not understand why closeness feels difficult for them. They reveal pain from the past they normally hide. They say they care in a voice that sounds almost surprised by its own honesty. Then sometimes, the next day, they retreat again. This confuses many people. They think the vulnerable moment was fake because it disappeared so quickly. But often the opposite is true. The vulnerable moment was real, and the retreat happened because being that open felt terrifying afterward. For someone who is not used to emotional exposure, honesty can create a hangover. They feel raw, embarrassed, overexposed, and suddenly want to hide again. That does not mean you should chase every rare confession forever, but it does mean these moments can reveal truths hidden beneath the usual defenses. Sometimes one sincere emotional crack tells you more than months of surface behavior. You may remember one conversation that changed everything for you. A single night when they finally dropped the mask, a few sentences that made more sense than all the silence before it. Those moments matter because they show there is depth behind the distance. The 13th sign is when progress is slow but real. This is where many people quit because they expect healing to look dramatic. They expect someone to wake up one day transformed, suddenly communicative, suddenly consistent, suddenly fearless. But emotional patterns built over years rarely dissolve overnight. Real change often looks small at first. They communicate a little sooner than before. They apologize without being forced. They stay present during difficult conversations a few minutes longer. They become slightly more affectionate. They notice when they are withdrawing and name it instead of disappearing completely. They begin asking what you need, even awkwardly. These shifts may seem tiny to someone who wants instant stability, but to a person overcoming deeply ingrained defenses, they can be enormous. Growth is measured in direction, not perfection. If someone used to vanish for days and now says, "I need space but I'll talk tomorrow," that is progress. If someone used to deny all feelings and now admits fear, that is progress. If someone used to run from conflict and now stays to work through it, imperfectly, that is progress. Many loving partners miss this because pain narrows focus. They only see what is still lacking. They overlook how far the person has actually moved. Now, progress should not become an excuse for endless stagnation. There must be a pattern of movement, not occasional crumbs. But when genuine growth is happening, patience can be meaningful. Sometimes the strongest relationships are not built by two already healed people. Sometimes they are built by two people willing to grow honestly together. The 14th sign is when they respect your boundaries more than others ever did. This can be subtle, but it reveals character. A person who truly cares, even while emotionally struggling, often does not want to damage you. They may not know how to love perfectly, but they begin learning where your limits are and trying not to cross them. You say you need honesty, and they attempt more honesty. You say you cannot handle disappearing acts, and they try to communicate before pulling back. You say a certain behavior hurts you, and they become more mindful of it. They may not get it right every time, but they listen. This matters because many people confuse intensity with love. But intensity without respect becomes chaos. Real care includes consideration. Someone can be passionate, magnetic, emotionally charged, and still completely disregard your needs. That is not healthy love. On the other hand, someone may be clumsy, slow, and emotionally inexperienced, yet sincerely trying to protect your peace. That deserves a different kind of attention. Boundaries are where fantasy meets reality. They reveal whether someone wants access to you or whether they value you. If they become angry whenever you ask for healthy limits, that is a warning sign. If they punish boundaries, ignore them, or mock them, that tells you much. But if they struggle yet sincerely adapt, it can show maturity beginning to grow. Many viewers need to hear this. You do not have to choose between compassion and self-respect. You can understand someone's wounds while still requiring better treatment. The 15th sign is when they keep you in their future plans, even if they struggle to define the relationship emotionally. Some people cannot speak clearly about commitment because the word itself triggers pressure, but they reveal desire for continuity through behavior. They mention places they want to go with you months from now. They talk about future events as if you are naturally included. They ask where you see yourself living. They imagine routines that involve you. They make decisions while considering your presence. This can be deeply meaningful because emotionally avoidant people often live in the present to avoid the vulnerability of future attachment. Planning ahead means acknowledging they expect and want you there. You may hear them casually say things like, "We should go there this summer," or "You'd love this when we travel," or "Next year we should." They may not realize how revealing those words are, but they are painting you into their tomorrow. Actions matter here too. Do they make room for you in schedules, holidays, life choices, responsibilities? Future language without future behavior means little, but when someone repeatedly organizes life with you in mind, attachment is speaking. This can be especially moving for those who feared they meant nothing. Sometimes the person who struggles to say, "I need you," quietly builds a life that assumes your presence. And that is where many people begin to understand something profound. Love does not always arrive in the form we expected. Sometimes it comes through trembling effort, awkward honesty, delayed realization, and slow emotional courage. But the next chapters may be the most important of all, when jealousy or protectiveness exposes hidden attachment, why some people secretly want deep love more than anyone knows, how healing can begin because of the right connection, and the final truth about when to keep trying and when to let go. And this is where everything becomes clearer, because by now you may have recognized pieces of your own story inside these patterns. You may have remembered the distance, the warmth, the confusion, the small signs, the moments that felt real, and the moments that hurt deeply. Loving someone who fears closeness can feel like holding both hope and heartbreak in the same hand. But the final truths matter most, because they reveal whether the connection still has life in it, or whether you are carrying it alone. The 16th sign you may need to keep trying is when jealousy, protectiveness, or emotional reaction exposes hidden attachment. This does not mean toxic control, possessiveness, or unhealthy behavior. Those things should never be mistaken for love. What it means is something quieter and more revealing. Sometimes the person who struggles to express emotion directly becomes visibly affected when they imagine losing your place in their life. They may react when someone else gives you attention. They may suddenly become more present when they sense distance. They may ask unexpected questions about who you are spending time with. They may become unusually caring when they realize others value what they took for granted. Why does this happen? Because emotions that are suppressed often emerge sideways. A person who cannot easily say, "I'm afraid to lose you," may instead show that fear through protectiveness, discomfort, or sudden attentiveness. This can be confusing, especially if they usually seem detached. You may wonder why someone who appears calm suddenly becomes affected. The answer is that some feelings stay buried until they are triggered. Still, emotional reaction alone is not enough. Jealousy without growth becomes chaos. Protectiveness without respect becomes control. But when these moments lead to self-awareness, honesty, and increased effort, they can reveal attachment that words had hidden for a long time. Sometimes people do not understand the depth of their own feelings until the possibility of replacement forces them to look directly at what they could lose. The 17th sign is understanding that many emotionally guarded people secretly want deep love more than anyone realizes. This surprises people because the outside image often looks independent, self-contained, and unaffected. They may claim they do not need much. They may minimize relationships. They may act as though closeness is optional. But often that image is protection, not truth. Many people who fear intimacy still crave it intensely. They want loyalty. They want safety. They want someone who sees beyond the armor. They want to rest in connection without fearing abandonment or engulfment. They want the kind of love that feels secure enough to trust. The painful contradiction is that they may desire what they also resist. This is why some people sabotage the very thing they long for. When love begins to feel real, old fears rise with it. They worry they will be hurt, trapped, exposed, disappointed, or not enough. So they create distance from what they actually wanted. To the outside world, it looks irrational. To them, it feels like survival. If you have ever watched someone move away right when happiness was possible, you may have witnessed this inner conflict. They were not always rejecting love itself. Sometimes they were rejecting the fear attached to receiving it. That does not mean it is your job to rescue them. No one can heal another person through love alone. But understanding this truth can help you stop personalizing every withdrawal as proof that you were not enough. Sometimes the struggle was never your worth. It was their relationship with vulnerability. The 18th sign you may need to keep trying is when healing begins because of your presence. Healthy love can become a mirror. It can show someone patterns they never noticed, wounds they never named, and possibilities they never believed existed. You may notice they begin reflecting more. They admit behaviors they used to defend. They start reading, learning, asking questions, or seeking support. They become more aware of how fear shapes their reactions. They apologize with sincerity instead of excuses. They start trying to become emotionally healthier, not just to keep you, but because the connection awakens something in them. This is powerful because many people only change when pain becomes undeniable or when love makes growth feel worthwhile. Sometimes meeting the right person does not magically heal someone, but it motivates healing in a way nothing else did. You may have been the first person who felt safe enough to tell the truth to. The first person patient enough to notice the pattern without shaming them. The first person whose loss felt significant enough to confront their defenses. That matters. But there is another side to this truth. Healing inspired by you must eventually become healing owned by them. If growth only happens when you are threatening to leave, if insight only appears during crises, if effort vanishes when comfort returns, then the foundation remains unstable. Real healing becomes consistent. It continues when the emergency passes. It becomes part of character. So ask yourself honestly, are they awakening or only reacting? The 19th sign is the one many people wait for without knowing how to name it. It is not a grand promise. It is not one emotional speech. It is not temporary intensity after distance. It is movement. Movement toward accountability. Movement toward communication. Movement toward consistency. Movement toward empathy. Movement toward choosing the relationship with greater maturity than before. This is the sign that tells you trying a little longer may be wise. Because no one changes through perfection. But people do change through repeated direction. If they hear your pain and adjust, that matters. If they recognize patterns and interrupt them, that matters. If they stop blaming everything outside themselves and begin taking responsibility, that matters. If they become steadier over time instead of more chaotic, that matters. Many viewers stay too long because they are attached to potential without evidence. Others leave too early because they dismiss slow but real progress. The difference is movement. Potential says they could become better someday. Movement says they are becoming better now. One is fantasy, the other is reality. This is where your discernment becomes essential. Do not measure them by isolated moments. Measure patterns, measure months, measure whether trust is becoming easier or harder. Measure whether your nervous system feels calmer or more damaged over time. Trying longer only makes sense when something genuine is growing. And now we reach the final truth. Love them wisely, not blindly. This may be the most important lesson of all. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Patience without standards becomes suffering. Understanding someone's wounds does not require accepting endless hurt. You can care deeply for someone and still require reciprocity. You can empathize with their fear and still walk away from repeated harm. You can recognize their potential and still choose reality. Sometimes the wisest form of love is staying while growth is happening. Sometimes the wisest form of love is leaving when growth is refused. Not every distant person is meant to be given up on, but not every struggling person is meant to be waited for forever. Your role is not to carry another adult into emotional maturity. Your role is to meet them where effort meets effort, honesty meets honesty, and healing meets healing. So if you are watching this while wondering whether to keep trying, ask yourself these questions. Are they moving toward me, or only pulling me in when I leave? Are they learning or repeating? Do I feel valued or merely needed? Am I loving the real person or only the version I hope they become? Does staying honor me or erase me? Because the healthiest relationships are not built by one person endlessly understanding the other. They are built when two people choose growth together. And if that is happening, even imperfectly, there may be something worth protecting. But if you are the only one carrying the weight, the only one reflecting, the only one compromising, the only one trying to turn confusion into connection, then the lesson may not be how to keep trying. The lesson may be how to let go with love. Either way, never forget this. Someone else's fear of intimacy is not a measure of your worth. Someone else's inconsistency is not proof that you are unlovable. Someone else's unfinished healing is not your failure. You are allowed to desire peace. You are allowed to desire reciprocity. You are allowed to choose a love that does not require losing yourself to keep it. And sometimes the biggest sign of all is not whether they are ready for love. It is whether you are finally ready to choose the kind of love that is ready for you.